From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is a Varsity update. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio with Cameron Jordan. He's a busy guy at this time of year because it's high school playoffs. We are into week 2, and in the big classes, Cam, 6A especially, semifinals this week. They'll get an off week next week before the championships. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but some big games of those 4 semifinals between 6A1 and 6A2, 3 here in the Metro, really good games.
Yeah, we'll start in 6A1. If you got to talk about any of the games first, the one that's in the Metro, Moore against Jinx. Moore pulled up a huge upset last week against Edmond Santa Fe. They ran the ball for 393 yards in that game and really established it early and just continued it throughout the entire game. But they're going to be tested this week against a Jinx team that, after a narrow loss to Edmond Santa Fe in Week 9, has rolled the past 2 weeks. I mean, they're looking really stout, coming off a huge win at Mustang. So it's proven that getting on the bus and coming down here is going to be a big deal for them. So that game's going to be at Edmond North at 7 p.m. on Friday, and just going to be really interesting to see how that one can turn out.
6A1 obviously has been so east side dominated, 3 of the 4 in the semis from the east, but more a chance to get to the finals. What about 6A2? More of the west side represented in those 6A2 games.
Yeah, the only east side team in 6A2 is Bixby, and now Bixby's still
very good.
They're still incredible. Their offense is dynamic. They've arguably been the top team regardless of class in the state this year. That's how good they've been. But you have Bixby coming down. They're going to play Del City at Putnam City High School. Del City has a really strong defense, a defense that gave Stillwater its biggest test of the year in Week 10, and that was for a district title. So I would expect somewhat of the same thing against Bixby this week. Now, Del City's offense is going to have to play really well to be able to keep up with Bixby, but I think that game could be a little bit closer than some people think. And on the other side, you have a rematch between Choctaw and Stillwater. Choctaw's coming off an upset win at Muskogee. It was only Muskogee's third loss of the entire season. Whereas Choctaw, they've won consecutive games now. They're rolling right now. They've won, I believe, 5 straight games coming into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Their last loss was to a Stillwater team, and it was a 74-14 loss. Wow. I mean, that game was just controlled by Stillwater from the outset. And Stillwater's coming off a 77-point outing in the first round against Sapulpa. So yeah. Choctaw's got its work cut out for it, but that one is also going to be interesting just because it's really hard in football to beat a team twice.
Yeah, definitely. Some great matchups there in 6A. And those teams that win this week headed to the finals. Like I said, they do have an off week, but the finals are out there in a couple weeks. And we found out last week, Cam, that all of the 11-man championship games are going to be in one place this year. They're all coming to Central Oklahoma, Wantland Stadium, up in Edmond. What's been the response you've gotten from people, coaches, fans, just different facets of the high school sports world? What do they think about this decision?
Almost every single coach who I've talked to, and I've tried to make plenty of phone calls to everyone in the past couple weeks, every coach that I've talked to about this decision, they absolutely love it. The Oklahoma Football Coaches Association, this is something that organization has wanted for a long time. They've wanted centralized state championship games. Mm-hmm. And now we used to have it. Actually, Oklahoma State has hosted the most state title games of any college or any site in state history. So this year we're going to get 7 of those games at UCO. You're going to have 5 games on the first week of championships, and then Class 2A and Class A on the second week, and those 2 games are going to be on Saturday. Yeah. You're going to have games. I think it's going to be great for fans. The only negative response that I've seen is from Class 6A fans of East Side teams. Yeah. So, for example, let's say if Jinx were to win this week, they're going to face one of Broken Arrow Wasso. Why are we going to make those teams drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to play a football game when they could play at the University of Tulsa? Mm-hmm. That's not an issue. David Jackson talked about that a little bit last week, how that's not an issue because this is something all of the coaches wanted. And if the coaches want it, then it's probably going to happen because that's what's going to be best for the sport. But that's about the only negative reaction. Fans are excited about it. Players are excited about it. I think one of the biggest things with fans, and this is the biggest thing about centralizing championship games, fans are going to be able to buy one ticket, not have to drive around. Well, they're going to have to buy tickets for every game.
Right.
Unless the OSSA, which they're discussing this, making like an all-access pass. Mm-hmm. You get to stay at one site all day and you get to watch the best football in the state. I mean, how can you beat that? And that's what it's for. It's tailored for the fans. It's tailored for the OSSA to have a central location for the hub of high school football. All of small school basketball up to the Class 4A, the goal is to get to the big house. For football, that's what the OSSA is trying to do. They're trying to get to Wantland. And as UCO football coach Nick Bobeck said, and everyone's kind of taken up with it, the hashtag Road to Wantland. And that's kind of the new trend this year for that. So
not bad. Now you mentioned the 6A schools on the east side, those big schools that have dominated what was 6A and now 6A1. This is a one-year deal, Cam. So if something does go sideways and you see a huge drop-off, I guess maybe they could look at doing something different. But like you say, the coaches are firmly behind this move.
Yeah, and I think it would take like 0 people showing up to either of those big games, and maybe an 8 p.m. kickoff for the 6A1 title game does that, but I don't think so. I think the biggest thing that the OSSA is going to look for in this is they're going to look for feedback from fans as the event goes on. They're going to look for feedback from coaches. Coaches are really in favor of it now, but you have to experience it first. And now we've had this before. We've had it up at OSU. We've had it down in Norman as well at OU.
Yeah.
But what the OSSA is really looking for is going to see after this, how well do the coaches really like having a centralized title game? How much does it affect? And if anything, they can make a little clause in possibly a new contract, which they've talked about. They want to do that in the future. They want to. This is kind of a test year run.
Yeah.
They want to see if down the road, if they could be able to sign something that's a little bit longer, a little bit more tenured, a multi-year deal. And if you have to put a clause in there that, let's say 2 of those 6A1 schools are from the East,
Yeah.
put that game at the University of Tulsa, or put that game at one of the high schools up there.
Yeah.
That could be probably the only thing that I see changing from the current contract, but I think almost everybody across the board is really happy with how this turned out.
Let's remember, too, there are West Side fans that sometimes don't venture east because you're so far out there to go watch those 6A title games. Maybe that's where the fans make up the difference. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. It's only 2 weeks away. Unbelievable. But we'll have our first state champions crowned here in about 2 weeks. But lots of great football this weekend. Be sure to follow our coverage. We'll have you covered from the big classes to the small. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at Oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.